What is going on, everyone? This is Ryan with Automatic Comics. And in this video, we've got another auction recap. This was, this is the third big auction in a row that has been extremely impressive. Now, it's strange. I know people seem to prefer the when books are going down. They like watching the videos when books are going down, which is, I know that means that it means the books are maybe more affordable, like books that you can then pick up. But I think it's also great when the books are going up, not just from, the dealer perspective, but also from the collector perspective. It's nice to know that the books that you have like are maybe increasing in value, that it's not all just like slipping away over time. But this, we're talking about the Comic Connect auction that just happened. And I just got to say, like, this was an impressive auction. And, we're going to go over some of these books. We're going to talk about some of the trends that I saw. Again, Detective Comics, early Detective Comics, just super, super strong, but a lot of other areas as well. So let's get into this. There are some awesome books and some very impressive sales. All right, so before we get started, please remember to hit that like button and hit the subscribe button if you'd like to see more content like this. So, like I said in the intro, like I know, like a lot of times it seems like the videos that are, more negative on the market, that kind of thing, tend to get more attention. But that's just not what I'm seeing right now. If you've been watching my channel for the last couple months, you know that I've done a Comic Link video with the big Comic Link auction. I did the Heritage video with the big Heritage auction, and now we're at a Comic Connect auction. And all of these auctions have been, from what I can see, very impressive. Just solid sales. And I didn't know if having all these big auctions back to back over, about like 6 weeks or so was going to end up hurting them, that you just overwhelm demand. There's not enough money out there to buy all these books. Everybody's always like, oh, it's shill bidding. And it's like, there could only be so much shill bidding, right? Like at some point you just have to go like, all right, people are interested. They're bidding on these books. They're buying these books. I was in there bidding on some books in this one. And I felt like some pretty strong attempts at 2 books, and I got outbid. So, there are definitely, there seems to be some demand, but let's start getting into this because these are some cool books. And we're going to talk about a bunch of different stuff. So the first one, this is just one that, because I have a copy, I have a 5.0 of this book. I was happy to see this very solid sale. Now, one thing you'll notice on Comic Connect, this was for the Ruben Blades collection. And so it's just like a ton of books from this person's collection. I don't know if it's all of their books or if they kept any or what, but so this is from the Ruben Blades collection. They all say that they have this 15% buyer's premium that's added to the item at the conclusion of the auction. So when you're bidding, that means if you bid $3,000, you're actually going to pay $3,450, for example. And that has already been added into these numbers. Okay, so that gets added in about a minute afterwards on what's displayed on the screen. So all of these have had that 15% added. It's not being added on top of this. So the first book we're going to talk about here, this Wonder Comics number 15. This is my second favorite Alex Schomburg airbrush cover, behind Startling 49, the Bender cover. Just an incredible cover to me. I like the color scheme. It's got just fun cover content. This is a 5.0 that went for $3,910. So this book, you can see here, a 6.0 went for $3,950 in October. I wouldn't be surprised if that maybe sold right after this other one sold. Like it was maybe up on eBay. That looks like an eBay price. That's just my guess. We had a 5.0 in June earlier this year go for $26.40. We had a 4.5 go for $31.20. So 5.0 going for almost the same price as this 6.0. This is a book that had seemed like it was maybe like trending back down some, like it had gotten some really big sales over the last couple of years and was starting to trend down again. But this sale was a very, very solid sale. It is a great looking 5.0. You can see from the back, there's some, tanning and that kind of thing. But overall, great looking 5.0, $3,910. Very solid sale for this book. All right, now these are what I'm showing here is these are the items that I watched. I did not watch 1,400 items from this auction. I watched about like 60 or 70. It's just that these are from all the prior auctions that I've watched. So we're just going to kind of scroll through books here, and we're going to talk about different ones that I think are interesting, important to talk about. Let me know in the comments, did you bid on any of these? Were you participating in this auction, watching any of these? What did you think? Did you take anything home? I mean, there were occasional good prices, you know, like that did happen in here. It's not like everything sells for a record. Like that's one of those things like I always talk about is like I'm looking for what's the general feel or performance of that auction. There's always going to be deals, always going to be records, no matter what. Or not necessarily records, but big sales. And it's just how did that auction feel overall? This one was actually a record, I'm pretty sure. Let's check. So let's confirm that this was a record for the 5.0. Yeah, prior record was 3,600. So this was a record at 3,910 for that book. All right. Now, next one here, we can talk about, actually, I'm not going to talk about this one, but I just sold my Vault of Horror in a 1.5, number 12, and I sold it for like 1,100, and this one went for 1,323. So somebody who bought that for me got a great deal. they just made like $200, like in equity, if you want to call it an equity on that book. Then we've got, let's just talk about this one here, just because there's some that sold around what you might expect them to, and not everything. Like I said, not everything is a record. We've got a War Against Crime number 11. So War Against Crime number 11, second appearance of Vault Keeper, first EC horror cover, cool mummy cover. And so if we go and check out War Against number 11, and you know, EC 1950, pretty early EC there for the horror stuff. And we see a 4.5, 2,587. So you can see a 5.5 went for 2,520. We had a 3.0 for 1,000. We had a 5.0 here for 2,900. So this 4.5 went for 2,587. Went around what I would expect it to. I probably would have priced it around like 2,300. So I feel like a little strong, but not overly strong. So as I'm saying, it's like not like everything was some huge massive sale. This one is technically a record because it's never sold in a 4.5 before, but I don't necessarily count those as records unless it also beat my estimate. In this case, it did. So, or what I would have estimated this book at. So still a solid sale for this book, a book that you don't see come up all that often. From the perspective of EC books, it's a little one that you just see a little less than others. All right. Now this one, I think this one was probably a pretty good deal. Now it is CBCS, you know, so take that for what it's worth. You know, that is often going to hurt the sales price. Maybe somebody will try to crack this out, move it over to a CGC. But this magazine is Haunted number 14. Skull cover, you know, you've got the flaming skull on there and everything. This is a pretty popular book from this run. But let's take a look. So this magazine, it's Haunted number 14, went for $1,150. And let's see here. What would a 4.5 CGC at least go for? You can see here, CGC last sale 1,275 for a 4.5, 4.0 for 1,020, a 5.0 for 2,400. This is a book that definitely gets more expensive very quickly as the grades go up. But this is also a book that I think got a little out of hand during the, I'll say like the comic boom, a little late comic boom period. I mean, you can see here this 5.0 for 3,120 and then drops down to 2,400. I remember there were some really big sales for this book that kind of have been tapering off. And so still like this one went under a pretty recent sale. I mean, about 10% under. Usually with the CBCS books, we see 10 to 20% less for that sales price, whether, you know, whatever you feel about that, that's often what you see. But I wouldn't be surprised if maybe someone tries to crack this one out, resubmit. I'm not sure if it would do better than a 4.5. I mean, like taking a look at this one, there's quite a bit of spine damage here. It would probably retain a 4.5. It might drop down to like a 4 though, maybe even, I don't know. Let me know what you think. I mean, this is a fair amount of spine damage on there, but I have noticed that this spine damage doesn't seem to hurt books quite as bad as I often think it will when it's this kind of like creasing along the staples. Let's see what the back cover looks like. I mean, it's got a little bit of a spine roll. It's pretty dirty. It doesn't really feel like it's been cleaned or pressed. If it has, not really well. So maybe somebody can do something about that. But I don't really see this book getting above a 4.5. But I could see it being swapped over to a CGC case. All right. Now we're getting into a couple really big books here. First one we're going to talk about. This is a big sale. Suspense Comics number 11. This previously used to be one of my favorite LB Cole covers. I've moved on to a couple others that I like more now, but I still do really like this cover. I think it's a cool cover. The devil cover, he's sprinkling money over people, all that kind of stuff. Got the 5.0, went for $19,230. This was a big sale. So Suspense number 11, 1946, classic LB Cole cover. I mean, look at this. 6.5 sold in April for $9,000. 5.0 went for $9,200. 3.5 for $4,800. $19,230. I don't know. Is this the record? I don't know. Okay. Oh, that's right. There was a Promise Collection copy. That's right. That sold for $147,009. This was definitely one of those books that some people, and this is where there are a lot of people that don't like that the grading is different between the eras. That Golden Age is often graded different, or not often, is graded different than silver, than like modern. And you can be angry about it, all you want, but if you're buying CGC books, if you're dealing with CGC, that is how they are graded. And so you just got to understand that. And what I'm talking about here is it has this dust shadow on the back. There's actually a couple of them. Now, I have seen Mile High books, Edgar Church Mile High with dust shadows on the back as well. Usually they're not quite as pronounced as this. And that's why I think some people probably thought maybe like a 9.6 or a 9.4 is what it should have gotten. But hey, it is what it is. That is how Golden Age books tend to be graded. They are graded differently than the modern era books. And you can hate and rage all you want. it's not changing. Like it is what it is. And it's better to learn how the books are graded than to just get angry about it, but I'm sure I'll still have some comments, about that. But still, this was the second highest sale of all time for this book. We had an 8.5 in 2020 go for 14,200, but I mean, just massive. I wasn't watching this one when it sold. And so when I was going back through the sales afterwards for the books that I had flagged, I was blown away when I saw this number. I mean, 19,230 for a 5.0 is just, oof, man, that is bananas. So, hey, congratulations on that sale for Ruben Blades. Now, the next one, this is an interesting one because I know I've seen people talking about this sale. So this is a Suspense 3. This is considered like the non-superhero Golden Age book. I mean, it is very, very expensive. It is very in demand. It's an Alex Schomburg cover. It is, considered one of the Alex Schomburg covers, if not the Alex Schomburg cover. For me, the value proposition on this book has gotten out of line. I know people like this cover. I like this cover, but I don't like this cover at the price points it's at anymore. And I understand, I get it's an expensive book, but I think that there had been so few sales in this book for a long time. And now you're getting multiple copies popping up. I know it's a pretty rare book, but those sales are pulling out copies and they are getting some very serious numbers. And so the question is that maintainable? I don't know, but this is a 4.0 restored slight amateur that went for $82,225. Now I'll tell you why I think it went for this after we go and take a look at the pricing. So this is Suspense Comics number 3. Definitely the biggest book in this run, no question about that. And we'll show the restored copies as well, and the qualified copies, because this is a book that you're going to have restored and qualified copies come up probably more often than unrestored. But This was the CGC 1.5 that sold recently on Heritage in June. You can see here for 51,600. I think I had estimated it would go for like 45. So it went around what I thought it would, but it's still like, I mean, it's a pretty rough looking copy. It's got this, like the bindery type tape along the spine, missing pieces, but it is a universal. The funny thing was that this used to be in a regular CGC case, and someone I must have tried to get it reholdered, and they threw it in a magazine case, which just would suck. They just suck. But so that was that one. Then we've had a couple restored copies, I think, come up. Yeah, we had this B5 4.5 that went for 45,600. We had this C 4.5 centerfold married in 2022 that went for 55,000. We had the 10. This was the one that was the big controversy issue where it originally showed up as a universal, and then it was identified that it had been married and missed by CGC, so it got sent back. They fixed the label and everything. 10 went for 28,800. But now we've got, I mean, and look at how the prices have changed. I mean, look at this, like a 6.0 universal, 24,700. I know, I think it was a 6.0 that went on Comic Link maybe like 2 years ago for like 285,000, and I think it was either 6 or 6.5, and I think today it would probably go for quite a bit more than that, maybe like 400,000. But the reason, in my opinion, why this 4.0 went for so much more than this 4.5, and this was something I hadn't noticed before because I wasn't really paying that close of attention. I knew I wasn't going to bid on this, and so I looked afterwards just to kind of see on why this one went so high. And it's because if you look at the restoration, everything that's on here is in theory removable. So we've got small amount of color touch on cover, tear seals to cover and centerfold reinforced. Now, the tricky part can definitely be that cover and centerfold reinforced. There can be some big globs of garbage in there that I've seen that before on books, and I've heard that is very, very difficult to deal with. But my guess is that somebody paid, or the bidding was very strong for this because the plan is to try to get this book back to Universal. And, you remove the color touch, depending on how much there is. Like I said, it's slight amateur. So I don't know exactly where that color touch is on here. If it's, along the spine, if it's along one of the edges, if it's right in the center. I mean, who knows? It's not this thing. This is part of the art. So just, be aware of that. I don't know how much the tear seals are. Like I've talked with people before where they've had it's like small amount of glue on spine, and it is the whole spine. So you never know what you're getting with a book like this until it is opened. You may end up ruining the book to try to remove that restoration. And so the answer might be, after you send it to someone, is just like, I guess I'm just having it put back in the slab as a restored book. And then people are going to recognize that, and then you're probably going to lose $10, $20, $30,000, because at that point it's probably going to go back down around this price if people realize they can't get it back to a Universal. So this is definitely a gamble. That's why someone paid this. But let's pretend this book drops down to like a 2.5. I mean, a 2.5, given what this 1.0 sold for, or sorry, the 1.5 went for. I mean, a 2.5 today might be $100,000 book, maybe even a little more. And so the value proposition for someone, the risk reward was worth it to them. And who knows, maybe it keeps a 3 or something. Like you never know for sure what this book is going to do. But given the cover and centerfold reinforced, it's very likely that removing that would cause the cover to be detached. And so you get cover detached. Now you have like some color scrape from whatever color touch is being removed. The tear seals, meaning maybe let's see, I don't know where they are. Maybe there's some tears there. Let's see if there's anything that jumps out on the back cover. Like this, maybe there's some tear seals on these up at the top. I mean, maybe it drops down to a 3, something like that. But you never know. It is definitely a gamble. But if you've got enough money, it's a rare enough book, and the opportunity to get it back to a Universal is very appealing to a lot of people. I mean, it would be to me too. I feel like if I could have gotten this book for like 50 grand, that's probably a really, really smart buy. 82 is tough. If you're looking at maybe 100,000, something like that, and you've got to get all the work done on it. Maybe you're going to spend 1-2 grand getting work done on the book, and then you got to get it regraded, and it's 4% of value. CGC might charge you 3-4 grand just to get this book regraded. Your margins start shrinking, but universals, demand for universals it's going to be pretty high. So that's why I think this one went for so much, 82,000, so much more than that 4.5 restored. It's because I expect that somebody's going to try to get this back to a universal grade. We'll see. These books, they always have these identifying marks, there's little like stuff here, and you can see where art crosses the edge and all of that. And you're going to, if this book pops up again and we see a universal pop up, we're going to all check this book to see if it's the same one. All right. Now, one that was actually, to me, was a surprisingly low sale, because it's a great looking book. I really like this cover. I mean, it's still a lot of money, but it felt like this was a low sale. Super World Comics #1. This cover always pops. Like, it is always a really great looking cover. Just the colors pop, everything. And so this one went for $5,750. So let's take a look at Super World #1. And this is only a 3-issue run, and actually all 3 issues sold in this. I don't think I had ever seen issue 3 sell before. So that was cool to see as well. But here you can see we had a 5.5 go for $7,800, a 3.0 go for $4,300. I would have thought a 5.0 would probably go for like $6,800, somewhere in that range. Went for $5,750. So went about $1,000 less than I would have expected. And for a book that's as tough as this, it's actually pretty in demand. I think someone got a great deal on it. I mean, the reality is this is a book that has very few copies on census. I mean, 41 universals, 48 overall. If you get a chance to pick one up, especially in a 5.0, which is a pretty nice grade, you can see there are quite a few 5.0s on census there, but a pretty nice grade. I think that's a great buy. So I think congratulations to whoever picked up that book. All right. Now, if you haven't seen the other ones, like here's Super World Comics, just to kind of show you, we're not going to price these out, but here's Super World Comics #3. I had never seen this book sell in an auction before. It may have, it's possible. I mean, let's check since I've been back in comics. There was a 1.5 that sold last July. And let's see if there were any restoreds. And we had a restored 3.5 go in 2022. So there have been 2 copies that have sold since I've gotten back into comics. And that's always the tricky part with, especially with rare stuff like Golden Age, is like, if you aren't watching that specific auction or eBay or whatever, when that item sells or comes up for sale, you're not going to see it. I mean, this is 2 copies in the last 5 years, now 3. Like, that is how uncommon some of these books are to actually come up for sale. I mean, look at #3, only 17 universals, 21 overall. A lot less on census for this book. Then we had issue #2 as well, which I have owned a copy of issue #2. It's this one right here. There was a 5.0 restored. I always thought this is a pretty cool cover too, but a 5.0 restored. Got the space suit, spaceship, everything like that. Went for $1,161.50. So just in case you've never seen those books, that's that 3-issue run. You might think a 3-issue run is real easy to put together, but not with this one. But I mean, that'd be pretty cool if somebody had wanted all 3 issues and they put the whole run together all at once, which is almost, I wonder if that's ever happened, where you've had all 3 issues like this come up for sale together in an auction. All right, and keep scrolling down. Look at some other books. This was another very, very big sale. So this is this classic L.B. Cole cover, the Spider Skull cover. This is another one it's surprised me a bit. I mean, it's had some really big sales, and I wasn't sure if those sales were going to hold, if we were going to have corrections back down, if they were just out of line sales. And I mean, we've had a couple confirming sales lately. So it does seem like, especially in the mid grades, which are pretty uncommon generally for this book, we're seeing some consistent big numbers for this classic L.B. Cole cover. And so we've got Startling Terror #11. And, and that's what I do. Like, I'm watching these, I'm making my estimates on what I think things are going to do. And if it seems to change, I'm going to change what my feelings on those books. It's like, I know some people think like it's like, oh, you're flip-flopping or you're not consistent. It's like, no, if the market changes, you got to change with it. And this book has just gotten, I mean, really solid sales. Now, the one that was the very surprising sale that happened last year was on, I believe, the Comic Connect auction. Was it maybe the Bobby Blue copy? And it was this sale for a 6.5 that went for $33,350. Yeah, and Comic Connect, yeah, Bobby Blue collection. Beautiful copy of this book. Has a lot of tanning on the back. That's what really hurt it, but really a beautiful copy of this book. So 33,350. That was a monster sale. And the reason I can say that is like, look, like a 7.0 went for 18,000 in 2021, an 8.5 went for 19,200 in 2021. So then we had this huge $33,000 sale. Then just recently we had the black variant come up. Now this sold on Heritage. If you're not familiar with this book, there are two variants for this book. The first print basically was this one, this black variant. It was an air. And you can see here the difference. It's blue around the tear and you can read tails. This one was printed with black around it and you can't read the tails. So this was printed first. They generally believe it was about 10-1. Like there's 10 times as many of the blue as the black. And the black variant held up pretty well to this 6.5 sale. I mean, 38,400. It does generally sell for a decent premium. This is only about like a 15% premium or so. So not huge, but still pretty decent confirming sale for that $33,000 sale. Then we had this 5.0 go for 12,000. That one looks like maybe that was an eBay sale. And we also had, I think that this one was one of these was a black variant as well. I think it might have been this $10,800 sale. Yeah. So we had this 4.0 for 10,800. That was a black variant as well. And now we had this sale here, a 4.5 for 16,290. So, I mean, that 4.5 going for more than the 5.0 went for in June. I mean, these are confirming sales to me. When we have this $38,000 sale, we now have this $16,000 sale. I feel like we're getting some confirming sales on the value of this book. And while I do think this sale is a little on the high side, it still is it's a solid, strong sale and showing that there is just a lot of demand for this book, especially in a presentable, like mid-grade. And so, yeah, big sale for Startling Terror Tales number 11, the blue variant this time. Personally, I like the look of the blue better, but I know the black is the more rare one, so it does get that premium. All right. Now let's keep going through these sales. Oh man, this one just kept going. I was watching another book while this one was selling, and it just kept getting bid after bid after bid. This is from Chesler, which are super rare books generally anyway. Scoop Comics, number 2, a 1.8. Now, a while ago, I used to think this was a Lou Fine cover, and I'm not a fan of Lou Fine, but I was like, I do like this one, though. And then I found out it wasn't a Lou Fine cover, and I'm like, oh, that makes sense. because I don't like Lou Fine. And so, but it kind of had the feel with the guy that I thought maybe it was Lou Fine, but apparently it's not. But I think the thing that I really like is this like fish monster thing in the back. Now I know like some people just love Lou Fine, but his art just doesn't work for me. I mean, everybody gets to like their own stuff, and I do not like Lou Fine. But scoop number 2, a copy of this book hasn't sold in forever. So you can see here, the Comic Connect sales generally do get pulled in, but my understanding is that they send them about like a month after the auction. Like they compile everything and send them over to GPA. I don't know exactly if that's how it works, but that's what I've heard. And so they will get in here. It just takes a little while. You can see here, 6.0 went for 12,000 in 2019. That was the last sale, at least of a Universal. Let's see if any restoreds have sold. No restoreds, no qualified. So no copy has sold for 5 years. And the last copy was a 6.0 that went for 12,000, 1.8 for 13,250. This is the new record holder for this book. A 1.8 is now the new record holder for this book. Look at this. A 1.0 went for $362 back in 2016. This is an example of a book that has just, I mean, that's pent up demand. I mean, 100%. That is pent up demand for that book. First to market. You can't say for sure if another one pops up if it's going to get a similar type of number. This is one of the, it's a risk and a reward that you take when you become that first to market. It's like maybe it just tanks, or maybe there ends up being all this demand for the book and you get lots of bidding. And this one, there were at least a couple people that kept bidding back and forth, and just big sale for this book. So 13,250, just crazy. 1.8 record holder for this. And I think there's like an 8 or something. Yeah, there's an 8.5. There's an 8.5, a 7.0, that 6.0 that we saw that sold. So there are, I mean, the 1.8 here, there are 6 copies graded lower and about 10 graded higher. So that's why I don't know how well that price will hold up, but there's so few copies. I don't know if anybody's really going to want to put theirs up on the market. All right. But, big sales like that, they pull out books. Now, we had this Sensation Comics #1 and a 7.0. This is another one that felt on the weaker side to me. So you have Sensation Comics #1. So Sensation #1. This is the second appearance of Wonder Woman, first cover appearance of Wonder Woman. And 7.0 for that felt low. Yeah. So we had a 7.0 go for 90,000 in 2023, a 6.5 in 2023 go for 84,000. We had a 6.0 go for 56,000, another one go for like 57 or 58, 5.5 for 40. This is a book that in this price range, and this could be why, like in this grade, like look at this, from 5.0 to 7, we've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 copies sell in the last like year and a half. That is a lot of copies of a book like this, all right around the same grade. And it's possible that just wore down demand. I don't know. But I mean, that feels like a pretty great pickup. Like getting a 7.0 for the same price as a 6 that sold 8 months ago or 10 months ago. I mean, I don't know. That feels like a pretty great buy to me. Now, was the 90 high? It's hard to say. Like you see that there's 10 years between the prior two. So it went from 9,000 to 90,000, or kind of like a $10,000 to $12,000 book to 90,000. But I think I've said this before, like this is a major key. If you get the opportunity to pick up a major key for a discount, you're doing pretty well. Your risk is not like super high or anything like that. So I do think that this was likely a great buy. It's possible maybe the cover tanning hurt this one a little bit, but that's true with this book pretty much across the board. It's rarely like a bright white cover. But yeah, I mean, this was a low sale. Like I said, everything isn't a high sale. Everything isn't a record. And that was a low sale. But I do think that was actually a very good pickup for whoever had the 60 grand, to pick up Sensation Comics #1. All right, let's keep going. Now, this was one you can see I've been outbid. This was one of the books that I felt like I made a pretty strong effort on. Now, it says I bid 4,515. That was my actual bid. They do not add the 15% to what your bid was. So that means I actually bid like, would that be like 5,200? I think I was the underbidder on this one. I don't think there was anything else between me and that bid. So I thought I had this one a little earlier, and it was definitely going back and forth for a while. It was kind of funny. I was at the gym, and I was watching this one as I was finishing my workout, and I couldn't leave because I had to keep bidding. So I was there just like what, because the way that these Comic Connect auctions work is when you bid, it adds, when you're within 3 minutes, it goes back up to 3 minutes and keeps counting down. So it can take a long time to work through this. So it took about 20 minutes for this one to sell before I finally gave up on it. But yeah, went for 5,307, 5.0 CBCS. I valued this one between 5,500 and 6,000. I couldn't go any higher on it. I mean, I think this is one of the craziest World War II covers. It is just wild. I've only seen it come up for sale a few times. I did used to own like a 2.0 or a 2.5 of this book. It looks, I mean, the colors just always pop in person. Just the red and yellow look incredible. It's a super violent cover. But yeah, 5,307 CBCS. I was definitely going to try to crack and press and regrade this book. Like that was going to be my plan on it. It was probably going to be a keeper book just because it's such a nice grade for this book. But I mean, it's an incredible looking copy. Like the staple looks really good. I think it's a single staple book. Staple looks really good. Got like a little wear up in the corner here. You know, you got a little like dust shadow and kind of thing down there. I would not be surprised if the person who won it ends up, you know, doing what I was going to do and trying to crack and resubmit. It's got some dust shadows on the back, a little chip, you know, up on the top there. But overall, a very, very solid copy of this book. And I wouldn't be surprised if maybe it could get bumped up to a 5.5 or a 6. And if somebody tries to remove the dust shadows, you know, who knows, maybe even a little bit better. But yeah, crazy cover. That's one of the things, like when there's books I don't see come up for sale hardly ever, and they just like, they really like catch your attention. Like that is wild for the era. That's the type of book I want to go after. And, but yeah, unfortunately did not win. All right. Now this one, oh man, Punch Comics and Gus Rika is one of the famous cover artists for Punch Comics, and it had some solid sales. And this was one of the standouts. Punch Comics number 9, 5.5, $24,150. Holy cow. There is no way I was expecting that number on that book. I mean, so this is another Chesler. And I mean, look at this. That is the new record for this book. We had a 7.5 go for 21,600 back in 2022. This is the new overall record for Punch Comics number 9. It's a cool cover. It's a crazy cover. And this has definitely become, I feel like, as Punch Comics 12 has gotten priced out for a lot of people, this is like the next one that a lot of people are going after. But man, there have been some big sales. Like we had this 1.0 for 3,000, 3.5 for 6,600. It's looking like a really good buy now. Then we had this 5.5 here going for 24,150. I mean, just a beast of a sale. I probably would have thought maybe around 15. And so this went for almost $9,000-$10,000 more than what I would have expected this book to go for. So just a big, big number for Punch Comics number 9. And the other big Punch Comics book, Punch Comics number 12. Classic skull cover, 3.5, went for 32,587. I have a 1.5 of that book. It is one of my favorite books that I own. And it's solid looking copies. Got this little chip over here, but overall, like great presentable copy. Back cover, I think, like a little staining, something like that. But overall, like a great, great looking copy of this book. And this is one that we've had a few sales in this range. I think one of these lower sales was maybe like a slightly brittle page copy that just didn't perform quite as well. But we had a 2.5 for 25,000, 4.0 for 31, 4.5 for 33.6. Like, I think that 33.6 was either slightly brittle or had a bunch of writing on the cover, something like that. Yeah, slightly brittle, but a beautiful copy. I mean, stunning. Like, look at the whites on that. Just stunning copy. But this one, we had this 3.5 go for 32,587. Not like a super strong sale, but a very solid sale for that book. I would have expected probably around 30 and went for, but like, I'd say even like 30 to 32 and went for 32,587. So right around where I'd expect, but solid sale for this really cool cover. But yeah, again, like so many crazy books, getting to see all these come up for sale. All right. Making you watch me now for a while. So I'm going to try to jump through to get to the Detective Comics now, because that was one of the areas where I saw some very, very solid sales as well. Like I've talked about that before. Golden Age Detective Comics. The focus I've generally been on is Batman, but there were a bunch of pre-Batman Detective Comics in this too that had some amazing sales. First one I'm just going to talk about, because I mean, I own a copy as well, so I like to talk about books that I own. We had this Detective Comics 168. Now it's a 0.5. It is complete. It just is missing a lot of the cover. The back cover is missing this big chunk here. Front cover is missing these. I still think this should have probably gotten a 1. 0.5 seems a little, I don't know, overly aggressive. I think if you sent this to CBCS, you'd probably get a 1 to a 1.5 if that's what you wanted. But 0.5, $7,372. So this is the first appearance of Red Hood, the first origin of the Joker. Amazing cover, very significant issue. And we go down to a 0.5. I mean, last 0.5 incomplete was 4,000 back in 2018. We had a 2.0 for 7,000. We had a 3.5 for 9,500, a 5.0 for 16,000. I mean, this, like for this 0.5, I probably would have expected maybe like 5,500. Went for 73.72. So again, solid sale for this book. Now, I'm not going to talk about all the texts because I was watching a lot of them. We're going to talk about some of the big ones. We've got Detective Comics number 31, classic cover. I was thinking of bidding on this one, and then the bidding just got out of hand. So, I mean, this is a book that it's going to sell for what it sells for. It's one of the most in-demand detective comic books. It's probably Tech 27, Tech 31, Tech 38, or, like first Robin, first Batman, and then this are like probably the top 3 of those early issues, and went for 50 grand, 49,450 for a 6.0 moderate professional. This one, color touch tear seals, spine splits, sealed, cleaned, and reinforced. The clean generally means you cannot get it back to a restored or unrestored. I've heard some people claim they can. I don't know, but it's probably going to stay, as a purple label. Maybe somebody gets it to like, depending on how much is on there, maybe somebody tries to get to a conserved, but then you're going to have to, get rid of the color touch and that. I don't know how much it's going to impact the visual appeal of the book. But we take a look at Detective Comics number 31 and look at some restored books. And so, like I said, this was a 6.0, went for about $50,000. 6.0 A3. And so that's similar. An A3 would be similar to moderate professional. Went for 39,000 just in June. And that was a good looking book. We had an A5 went for 57,000 in 2022. That was a pretty high sale. We had, this 5.0 unrestored went for 174,000. I thought that was actually low. I thought that book should have gone for over 200. We had this 4.0 go for 48,000. I mean, this is a book that, 1.8 going for 38,000. Yeah, it's just, this is a book that it feels like you're going to pay 40, 50 even for anything now at this point. Restored's always a little tricky, and how, you don't necessarily get as big of a jump in value as the price or as the grade goes up. But still, I felt like 50,000 was a very, very solid sale for this book. I was thinking somewhere probably around 40, just given this sale here. And this was on Comic Connect on the same auction platform, went for 39,000. I mean, here's this one. Compare the two. Here's this one. Very comparable copies, but I think this one's actually a little bit nicer. Now this one has interior lightened, maybe that hurt it a little bit more. I don't know, but yeah, I feel like this $39,000 sale looks like a really good pickup now for that book. All right, let's keep scrolling through, take a look at some other Detective Comics, some notable ones. This first Riddler, this was also a very strong sale. Detective Comics number 140. And this is a book that after the Batman movie, it had really been pulling back. It felt like a number of copies came up, prices seemed to be dropping, and 5.0 for 19,000 was a really, really solid sale. I mean, look at this. 4.5 for 8,100, 5.5, 13,000, 6.0, 13,000, 6.5, 22. So it's like this went for around what a 6.5 was going for, like when the Batman movie was coming out. I mean, here we had a 5.0 for 11,400. This one went for 8,000 more, like 75% more. This was a big, big sale for this book. And it's not like, to me, it's like super presentable. It's got some really big dust shadows and stuff. It just, these Detective Comics, like you never necessarily know what they're going to go for. And I do feel like this was an overpay, in my opinion, given how many copies have been coming up for sale. And we've been seeing prices in that range go around 8 to 12. And so this does feel like, maybe just a little too much excitement in the auction, something like that. It does feel like an overpay. I never want to make someone feel bad about picking up a book, especially a big key, like Grail book like this. But this was high. It comes up enough that I don't feel like you need to pay that for that book. Just my opinion on that one. All right. Now let's keep going here. So I want to get to some of the, well, we did have a Detective Comics 27. So let's see where that one is. We can talk about some of these early Detective Comics. We have this 33, a 6.0 restored, went for 19,000. We had this one here, a 37, a 3.5. I think this is restored as well. Yep, restored, went for 10,600. And this is the last pre-Robin issue, but 3.5 restored going for 10,000. Now we're going to start getting into some of the pre-Batman text pretty soon. We had this 7.0. This, I was happy to see this. I've got a restored Detective Comics number 38. Mine's an 8.0. Different types of restoration on them, obviously, but so 7.0 went for 24,788. So I was very happy with that. We had this 5.0 Detective Comics number 8 classic cover. This is one of those that had that huge sale not too long ago, and like a 1.8. And this one went for around the same price in a 5.0. And so that's that risk. If you pay a ton of money, even for a rare book, when one hasn't sold for a long time, that it pulls out copies, and then you start getting the price to get back to maybe around where it should be. And but yeah, 5.0 for 16,000. Let's take a look at that one just so I can show you kind of like the pricing on that book and what's really happened with it. And because it's still, the values have definitely gone up, but we had the $17,000 sale for a 1.8, but then we had a 1.5 for 5,000. We had a 3.0 for 5,300 in 2022. We had this $33,000 sale for a 7.5, but then here we have a 5.0 that went for 16,000. So that feels like around probably where it should be. I mean, up quite a bit from 2018, but it's not 2018 anymore. And so still, like, I mean, strong. I mean, it's not like it's a weak, it's like a cheap, it wasn't a cheap sale. It's like, that's a strong sale, but I think that that's pretty reasonable for around what I would expect this book to go for, and a good looking copy. All right, now we'll keep scrolling down here. We had this Detective Comics number 40, first appearance of Clayface, first cover of the Joker, a 5.0 went for 21,000. I can't remember. Let's check this one out. I can't remember if this was a strong sale or not. So here we have a 5.0 that went for 25. So yeah, so this one actually a little underperformed, seems. So we had a 5.0 went for 25,000 back in 2023. We had a 2.5 went for 11,500 earlier this year, a 1.5 for 8,400. So this one, a little bit of an underperformer, 21,721. So like I said, not everything was a super strong sale. But I also want to, you put that in perspective. 2022 went for 16.8. Then it had a huge jump, $9,000. So it's the second highest sale of all time. So I mean, take it for what it is. Like, maybe the 25 was high and this one is a little more in line, but still, these are strong sales for these books. Like Detective 29, 6.0 restored, $45,000. Now let's see. This one I was very happy as well to see. We had a Detective Comics 28, second appearance of Batman. I picked up a 28 earlier this year. Mine is a 1.0 Universal, and this one went for 18,000 for a restored. So I am very happy with my pickup of my 1.0 Universal of that book. Now we're starting to see some of these pre-Batman texts. So we had like this issue number 7, a lot of them restored, but went for 3,000 and a 6.5. We had issue number 10, 3,000 and a 7.5. Issue number 20, this is a Universal, went for 7,000. I mean, I'm not going to go and look at all these prices, but these, I mean, I was watching them while they were selling. These were solid, strong sales for these books. These were very respectable numbers for these books. And we can see here, the biggest sale of all was this Detective Comics number 27. 7.0 restored, went for $336,000. That was a very, very respectable sale for this book. So we can take a look at this one. Let's see what the restoration is. Color touch pieces added, tear seals, and reinforced. Moderate professional. I mean, in theory, again, that means that this could go back to a Universal, possibly. I would not be surprised if somebody tries. I mean, it may do a lot of damage to the book, but a blue label Detective Comics 27, absolutely, I would take that if I could get it back to it. There's no question in my mind I would make that effort to get that book back to it. I would at least try. Now, if you have to get it regraded, 4%, of like $300,000, you're paying like 12 grand to get that book regraded if you crack it out to have someone take a look at it. So just one of those things that you got to remember, like you're going to spend a lot of money getting back into that same slab. And there's no guarantee you keep the 7, whatever. But if it comes out like a 2.5 Universal, probably worth it, 3.0 Universal. But yep, definitely the risk, that somebody's taking potentially, if that's what they're going to try to do with that book. Like I think with the Suspense Comics number 3. Then here we had this was one of the rare bird. This was one of the most surprising sales I saw in this auction. Now it's hard to say. It's not like you can say like, oh, it's super shocking because I never thought it would sell for this, but this was a big number. 52,900 for Detective Comics number 1 qualified. So the reason it's qualified, has a centerfold married. So it is technically, you could have it as a 0.5 Universal if you took out that centerfold, but it's a 2.0 qualified, meaning they're pretending that it's a complete book, originally complete book, but they put the green label on it. So if we look at Detective Comics number 1, which again, a book you almost will never see this book come up for sale. And we look at a 0.5, let's see here. We had one that was missing multiple pages, 4 pages, went for $15,600 in 2021. This one would be like, I was expecting, I think 25 to 30 for this copy. And we had a 5.0 went for 108,000 in 2022. And otherwise we had a 6.5 restored went for 48,000 in 2021. This one went for 20 grand, 20 to 30 grand more than I thought, about 20 to 25 grand more than I thought it would. But when are you going to get your opportunity to pick up a Detective Comics number 1? It's like, clearly you can see how often this book comes up for sale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Like, these are cover lists, so I'm not going to count those. 4 copies in the last 5 years. So when they come up for sale, somebody wants one, and there's just 2 people at least that are competing for it. You're going to get just these big numbers. And this one was one of those massive numbers. And I saw that across the board here. Now, again, not everything went for huge new records. Like we had this one here, this 7.5 Detective Comics 16. And if we jump over, so let's take a look at this one. And 4th highest graded copy, only 3 graded higher. We jump over and look at Detective Comics number 16. We had a 7.0 that went for 20,000 back in 2022. So this one went, now it was a pedigree, but this one went for less than that 7.0, and it was a 7.5. It's a good looking book too. And so it's not like everything was a record, but they were very, very respectable sales. There were definitely records. There were big sales in here. But not everything obviously was a record. That's not how you can't really look at it that way. It's never going to be that everything is a record, but yeah, I appreciate it if you've stuck with me, throughout this video. Just overall strong, respectable auction, and the 3rd in a row. And, this one had sales that were not all of them being that like super high end, it's like the mid high end, like mid to mid high end to the high end tier, and really solid sales kind of everywhere. And honestly, like if you're going to comment in my comment section, it's like, oh, it's all shill bids. Like you're just lying to yourself. Like I know people want to see prices go down, but like 3 huge auctions in a row with consistent strong sales, like at some point you just got to go, yeah, things are doing well. And, at least in this tier of the market, which is the $1,000 plus tier, like that tier of the market seems to be doing quite well. especially in Golden Age. Now, the other eras I talked about in the other videos, like those other eras were doing pretty well too. Bronze was doing surprisingly well. Modern was even doing pretty well. And so, you like sometimes you got to look at what's actually going on out there. And I know like sometimes people get like this like tunnel vision on maybe what they're personally experiencing. And I'm not saying that like everybody is out there and able to spend all this money on comics, but like clearly, like we have had multiple auctions in a row now where just strong, solid sales. And all I can take away from that is people are out there buying, stock market's at an all-time high. Interest rates are starting to come down. I mean, it seems like comic prices are doing pretty well at the moment, but hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit that like button, subscribe button, notification bell, and I'll see you on the next one.